Okay guys, so today we're starting a new set of notes. We're going to talk about graphing with intercepts. So we've already learned how to graph making a table. We've learned how to graph looking at, points. So we've given you lots of different ways where you'd plug numbers into a table that you guys would create. We talked about yesterday looking at the slope and the y-intercept. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about intercepts. So we talked a little bit about y-intercepts, but now we're going to add in x-intercepts. When we're talking about graphing, we need 2 points. So it really doesn't matter to me where we get those 2 points. We just have to have 2 points. So yesterday, whenever we were looking and graphing, we had to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form was y equals mx plus b. That works out really well, but what happens if it's not in that form? What if we're given something called standard form? And what standard form is, it's an equation that's written like this. ax plus by equals c. And before you get kind of freaked out about that, it's the same thing we've been working on, except for it's not y equals. The x is just in a different location. And so it can make it difficult, and we can't graph in slope-intercept form when it's like this. So an x-intercept is the x coordinate at the point where the graph crosses the x-axis. Just like a y-intercept, x-intercept is where it hits the x-axis. So remember, this is our y. This would be the y-intercept right here where it hits the y-axis. This would be our x-intercept where it hits the x-axis. And so if we didn't have the slope, it wasn't written in the right form, we could use these 2 points right here in order to graph, because we only need the 2. And so whenever we're doing this, an x-intercept would have a point with an x value, something in the x, and it would have a 0 in the y, because if you look here, x is 2, but our y is 0. A y-intercept would have a 0 in the x, and it would have a value in the y. So you can look here, x is 0, while y is -2. And so what we can do is just like we did in the last module where we had to make a table and we just plugged in a couple of different points, we can do the same thing, but we can use the zeros. And zeros are really easy to plug in. So here we have an equation, 2x plus y equals 4. Now that does not look like what we did yesterday. We can't get the slope when it's like this. We can't get the y-intercept when it's like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a table. Okay, we're going to have an x. We're going to have our equation. And then we're going to get a y. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to plug in zeros, because that's what intercepts are, where they hit those. So I'm going to start by plugging in a 0 for x. Okay, so I take my equation. 0 is easy. 2 times 0 plus y equals 4. What is 2 times 0? Well, it's 0. And so we're left with y is equal to 4. Okay, this right here is my y-intercept. Okay, right there. So 0, 4. I'm going to go ahead and plot that. 0, 4. There's 1 point. Now I need another one. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I have my table. Got my x, my equation. But this time I'm going to plug in a 0 for y. And this is going to get me my x. It's going to hit somewhere over here. So in my equation, instead of a y, I'm going to put a 0. So 2x plus 0 is just 2x. Solve for x. It's being multiplied, so I'm going to divide. X is equal to 2. So this is my x-intercept. So it would be 2, 0. So I go over to the 2, 0. I've got 2 points. Now I can draw my line. between those 2 points. Oh, that wasn't a good one. And that's another strategy I can use to graph when my equation looks like this, because slope-intercept is the easiest. But if it's not written in the right form, we can't use it. Okay, let's do it again. So again, make my little table. So this time I'm going to kind of put it all on the same table so you guys can see. So I've got my x, my equation, and then our y. So I'm going to start first by plugging in a 0 for x. Okay, negative 1.5 times 0 plus y equals negative 9. Negative 1.5 times 0 is 0. That's why this is nice, because 0 is easy. So we're left with 0 equals negative 9. So remember, that's my y-intercept. Okay, so I go 0, negative 9, and it is off of my graph. So here's negative 7, 8, 9. Okay. So I'm going to kind of make a little note down here. So y-intercept. So I'm going to write the ordered pair. Would be 0, negative 9. So now I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to do the same thing, except for I'm going to plug in a 0 for y. So I'm just going to skip a little spot here. So redo your equation. So negative 1.5x plus, not y, but the 0 equals negative 9. Negative 1.5x plus 0 is just negative 1.5x equals negative 9. X is being multiplied by negative 1.5, so I'm going to divide. X is left. Negative 9 divided by negative 1.5 is 6. And so this is my x-intercept. This is where it's going to hit the x-axis. So 6, 0. So x-intercept, 6, 0. I've got my 2 points on my graph. And now I can just connect the two. So again, this method works really great like this. If it's in the y equals format, you can use slope-intercept. We're trying to teach you guys lots of different ways depending on what kind of equation you might run across. Okay, let's do another one. So again, draw my table. Doesn't need to be that dramatic. Okay, we're going to write the x, my equation, and y. So I'm going to start with my y-intercept, so plugging in a 0 for x. So 3 times 0 plus 2y equals 6. 3 times 0, of course, is 0. So we have 2y equals 6, being multiplied by 2, divide by 2, and y is equal to 3. So y-intercept is 0, 3. So 0 for the x, 3 for the y, dot. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're looking for our x-intercept, so I'm going to plug in a 0 for y. So 3x plus 2, but instead of y, we're going to plug in a 0, equals 6. 2 times 0 is 0, so we're left with 3x. It's being multiplied by 3, so I divide by 3. X is equal to 2. So that is my x-intercept, where it's going to hit the x. 2, 0. So I go 2, not up any, 2 points. Draw your line. Alright, let's practice a couple more of those. Okay. So again, it's in that standard form, not good to graph in the way it is, so I've got to make my table. Negative 5x minus 2y equals 10. Y. So start first by plugging in a 0 for x. So negative 5 times 0 minus 2y equals 10. Negative 5 times 0 is 0. So we have negative 2y equals 10. It's being multiplied by negative 2, so we divide by negative 2. 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. So that is my y-intercept. 0, negative 5. So I go to 0 for my x, down to negative 5, put a dot. Okay, now I'm going to plug in a 0 for y. So negative 5x minus 2 times 0 equals 10. Negative 2 times 0 is just 0. So we have negative 5x equals 10. Multiplied by negative 5, so we have to divide. X is equal to negative 2. 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. So that is my x-intercept. So negative 2, 0. So I go to negative 2. I don't go up any. Draw your line. There it is. Okay. And last one. Okay, again, it's in that standard form. Can't easily plug in things here. So we have 1/2 times x plus y equals negative 3. So no, not 0 there. That's a y. Start by plugging in a 0 for x. So 1/2 times 0 plus y equals negative 3. 1/2 times 0 is 0, so we're left with y equals negative 3. It's always nice when it does that. So that is my y-intercept. So 0, negative 3. So I go to 0 for the x, down to negative 3, put a dot. Plug in a 0 for y. So we have 1/2 x plus 0 equals negative 3. So 1/2 x plus 0 is just 1/2 x. It's negative 3. Now it's being multiplied, so you divide by 1/2. Negative 3 divided by 1/2 is negative 6. So that's my x-intercept. Negative 6, 0. So I go over to negative 6 and I don't go up any because this is where it's going to hit that x-axis. And I draw my lines. Okay. Alright, so again, that's another tool in your belt, guys, of what ways you can graph. So if it's in standard form like this without that y equals, this is a great way to do it. You could have picked any numbers and plugged in, but like negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2 like we did in the previous chapter. But it's much easier just to plug in those zeros, and you can change. You don't always just have to plug in for x. Sometimes you can do the y. So this is another strategy. Today's homework is 7.4 day 1, and you're going to do 1 through 6. Make sure you guys show your work. Use your time wisely. If you finish, the sub has an answer key, so you guys can check if you would like. If you finish, you can work on con. See you guys tomorrow.